Hello, and welcome to the 6th episode of Ignited Prep's summer series, Meet the Industry Expert. I'm your host, Tanya Bennett, founder and CEO of Ignited Prep, the online academy for sales, operational excellence, and management development. My co-host today is a trusted partner of Ignited Prep and our operations consultant, Marie Genevieve Pollock, and she is the founder and CEO of Prime Alchemy. We are super excited to introduce our guest today, Nick Vojnovic. He is the president and majority partner of Little Greek Franchise Development. Nick became the owner of his first restaurant with the Little Greek franchise in Tampa in 2015 and rebranded the company to Little Greek Fresh Grill. Little Greek is a fast-growing, high-quality Greek restaurant chain and is based in Tampa. When Nick first became president, there were only 4 locations. Today, however, there are 43 locations scattered throughout Florida, Texas, Arkansas, Kentucky, Ohio, and Illinois. Prior to Little Greek, Nick served as president of Beef O Brady's Family Sports Pubs for 12 years, which is where I met Nick. His strong work ethic was instrumental in helping Beef O Brady's grow from 30 units, mostly in Tampa, to a chain of more than 260 units located in 23 states. Prior to his career at Beef O Brady's, Nick served as the VP of HR for Famous Daves of America. Nick is very involved in the industry and has served as chairman, board member, and Hillsborough County chapter president for the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association. He sat on the Techonomic Advisory Board and the NRA Fast Casual Executive Board. Nick also currently sits on the Executive Advisory Board for the USF College of Business. In 2019, Nick was awarded the Florida Restaurateur Hall of Fame Award, the Elliott Motivator of the Year Award, a Nation's Restaurant News Golden Chain Award, and was an Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year finalist. USF also awarded him Entrepreneur of the Year. Nick's been featured in many articles, including USF Fast 56, 6 years in a row, Fast Casual Top 5 to Watch, and QSR Magazine Fast 40. Nick has become a regular on Fox Business with over 10 appearances and has been featured in the Wall Street Journal. He's also very involved in the community and has partnerships with a number of charities, including Autism Speaks, Striving for Stephen, National Wheelchair Basketball Association, where he sits on the Paralympic Executive Board, Real Men Wear Pink, Florida College for the Deaf, St. Jude's Children's Hospital, American Diabetes Association, Be the Match, and recently he just became a Big Brother and for the Big Brother Association and currently sits on the board in Hillsborough County. Nick graduated from Cornell University School of Hotel Administration in 1981 and successfully completed his MBA at USF Business School in May of 2012. He serves as a board member of 5 startup restaurant companies. Nick and his wife, Renee, live in St. Petersburg, Florida, and have 2 children, a son, Jonathan, wife, Brittany, granddaughter, Evelyn, and granddog, Winston, and daughter, Lauren, fiance, Zach, and granddog, Chance. Welcome to Meet the Industry Expert, Nick. We are so happy to see you.
Tanya, it's all thanks to you I'm here. So that's they need to add that to my bio.
Yes, well, no.
I'll
get with your people.
Marie is my inspiration too. I get teary-eyed when I see her as well. So
I love it. So welcome, Nick. Welcome, Marie.
Honored to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you.
You guys have some good hair, and keep losing mine. So what's up with that? Huh? I'm telling you.
You are fantastic and fabulous. That hair has to be from all these awards, and your career has been amazing.
So, I tease my family. It's like when you get old, you can get awards because you're kind of old. So you've been around for a while. So they run out of people to give them to. And say, well, we'll throw one to Nick. That's how that. Just to let you know, look forward to the future. You guys will all win a bunch of awards. So we're all.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, you'll have less hair, but lots of awards.
That's right. That's it.
All that matters. Well, Nick, what I would love to do is to get started with you sharing a little bit about Little Greek franchise, because I know a lot of our viewers may not know if they don't live in a state or city about the franchise. So tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So as you mentioned, Tanya and I worked together at Beef O Brady's, great run. And in 2010, we were bought by a private equity firm. So I went back to school, got my master's degree. I felt my strength was taking a small franchise company and growing it. Once Beef got up to around 260 stores, we were doing $250 million in sales. It gets real big and you kind of get away from the franchisees. So I looked to buy a small franchise company to see if I could get it going. Ultimately, I looked at 80 different concepts: burritos, yogurt, pizza concepts, stuff like that. And one of my friends, who's one of my advisors, he kept mentioning Little Greek. It's a real high quality Greek food. They had 3 locations in Tampa, 1 in Dallas, 2 were franchise, 2 were corporate. And the founder, Sigrid Bradic, was a wonderful woman. She came from Estonia, and just she knew that she needed to bring somebody on board to help grow it. So we set up a partnership, and I bought the brand when I was in school and kind of graduated, and we've been nice, steady growth. One of the mistakes I think we made at Beef is we grew so fast, opening 50 stores a year, that kind of sometimes you lose traction, and we were spending too much. So with Little Greek, we've been real focused on keeping the cost down. Total investments, $150,000, $200,000 to $300,000 or $400,000, 1,200 square feet. It's a fast casual concept, but very, I guess they call it upscale, where very high quality Greek food made from scratch, served in a fast casual environment. So it's been a great run. And I remember Brian St. George as our chief operating officer. So it's been a lot of fun.
And it's funny that you say, because I remember at Beefs, we were very assertive and aggressive with our growth strategy. And, it's funny, I've worked for other companies that have followed in line with that as well.
Right.
And what, you find those issues of the communication is a nightmare, because it's really hard to keep up with that many stores with all of the changes that happen on a daily basis.
Exactly.
And I think too, learning the strategies about proximity and all of the factors that face these individual units as you grow and expand. I learned Beef O Brady's was kind of like my restaurant 101 to how to open a new world,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah. Well, I do some guest lectures, and sometimes I do my top 20 career mistakes. That's one of them, was growing too fast. Going too fast. Yeah.
No, that's a good one. And I think that's the one that people kind of they scratch their head, because they're like, but we're in business to grow. And they don't realize that growing too fast can be a detriment to the business. So I love that you include that.
Yep.
And it's funny, it's even the same for a single entrepreneur. One of the biggest things, if you cannot scale your business, and I'm a big avid CrossFitter, and one thing that I have learned with CrossFitting, because some of these workouts make me hurl, and I've had to learn that sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. Sometimes if the strategy is just fast, you're going to burn out, and then it's not sustainable. So I love this message. And so kind of goes into the next point of conversation, which is, the pandemic, that of course we all had little black books that prepared what to do in case a global pandemic.
Right. We wish. Exactly.
What, you guys didn't have that book? I mean, I have it right now.
Was that on the shelf with one of your awards?
No. I should have called Marie. I think she had that book. And
I had that book. See,
there's a lot of headaches.
The little black book. What to do now?
I know.
I think she also has the cure of the vaccine is on the back of that book too. So she's way ahead of us.
Don't tell. So I have to ask, your company actually is a mid-sized company, and obviously has you cater to individual business owners, right? Your franchises. So when this pandemic started, what was the strategy? How did you navigate as it got serious? And it seemed like it happened overnight. Right. How did you navigate the brand and guide those franchisees of how to move forward in a world that we'd never seen before, that there was no strategy, where forecasting was impossible? It still is. How did you navigate that?
Yeah, great question. And obviously everybody's been kind of, spinning around trying to figure out the direction. The one thing I recommend to folks is to get great advisors. And so fortunately, I was on a board with the National Restaurant Association. It's called the Fast Casual Executive Committee. And so a bunch of CEOs from different companies, and we started doing daily, weekly calls to kind of start comparing notes. Because to your point, I mean, there was no playbook. I normally plan the year. We look at maybe, what if we have an economic downturn, sales go down 10 or 20%? Well, nobody prepared us for 50% closures, things like that. So it was definitely devastating and quite shocking. So we immediately suspended royalties. So we want to give our franchisees some breathing room. March 16th, the floor dropped out. We went to these groups and started saying, what are the best practices? And it really was kind of a day-by-day deal, because you had different cities, states, counties shutting things down at different processes, different rules and regulations. So Brian did a great job of getting the information in and then getting out to our franchisees as quickly as possible. There was a certain fear factor, as you know, and you're all business people too, that, will we be around? I mean, is this going to be something that takes us all out? So we told franchisees, conserve cash, put off bills if you don't have to, watch your staff, trim things down. We pivoted to, like a lot of industry folks, we started selling groceries in our stores because people couldn't go to get toilet paper or chicken. We had signs out front. Fortunately, and this is one of those weird things in life where sometimes you just, position properly for things that it's kind of just happenstance, that our brand is 50% eat-in. We were already 50% takeout. So we have very small stores. So we weren't sitting on these big real estate where, my friends in the full service side, that's a tough deal. And then with being owner operators, the franchisees can scale back to just a handful of staff members to kind of keep it going. So we kind of went very quickly into the grocery piece, getting signs outside, and then setting up the takeout component. So it was definitely a scramble. And we saw probably immediately a 30% sales drop. And then we slowly started climbing. Now, we're also fortunate to be, we have 18 stores in Tampa, 10 in Orlando, 10 in Dallas. So the bulk, 75% of our system is in Texas and Florida. And, we're kind of lucky that those states were open. Our folks up there with Marie in Illinois, it was a tougher deal. Those areas got shut down harder and deeper. And so those stores took longer to kind of get out. So it was a very fast-paced situation. We kind of moved with the flow. We were already doing the takeout. We did go from 16% sales of Uber to like in the low 30s. So we doubled our delivery side and try to keep, keep people on track, working with franchisees individually, then helping them get the PPP money, round one, round two as well. So it was a scramble. I guess I had a lot more hair before that happened. So yeah, it was. And to your point, it's still going. Who knows what the future holds? So, the lesson we said franchisees is, always save for the rainy day. Don't run your businesses too tight. You'll keep your hands on the business very carefully. And now, as you know, we're dealing with the whole labor piece. We've had stores have to curtail hours, trim back menus, and things like that. So it's a tough industry. And this last year was the toughest. I'm been around too long, 40 years, and this is by far the most difficult year in my career.
Wow.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things where I look at it. At the time I was with Topgolf, and, Topgolf too, before the pandemic, was very aggressive with their growth strategy, which to me was fascinating to see and be a part of, because Nick, my Topgolf that opened in Baton Rouge was considered one of the smaller locations, and we opened with 400 employees. I was like, that's like a hotel, right?
Yeah.
And
Massive.
And they were opening quite aggressively, pre-pandemic. And now they're actually back on track to opening, which it's a little bit different than a typical restaurant, but
right.
Also one of those concepts that couldn't just go to, we weren't known for takeout, for
right.
delivery. So we couldn't necessarily do that. And then the other thing I had to think about is normally, even during times like 9/11 or during times like even somewhat of the economic crash, never have we seen a time where like a Topgolf globally, okay, all of our stores, our venues in Dubai, in Mexico, they're all closing at the same time. Like, how do you prepare for something like that, right?
Yeah. Great call. Yeah, we've had hurricanes where a certain region gets knocked out, but everybody else is still going full tilt. So yeah.
Yeah. So this was a learning curve for sure. And so I guess that's the other thing I want to talk about. So obviously your restaurant, you're exactly right, for being takeout was positioned perfectly to be able to cater in that world. Do you see those trends continuing post-pandemic? Like what's your you've been around a long time. What do you think are, the ebbs and flows of what it's going to look like?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I'd like to get your thoughts as well. Long term, we also were doing about 10% of our sales were catering. That all went away. So we kind of picked up some sales on delivery. Catering went away. It's coming back. And I guess that is kind of, for me, one of the big issues is and I'd like to get your thoughts, but from what I hear, a lot of companies are not going to go back to people being in the office 5 days a week from 9 to 5. And clearly that will impact our catering potential because, that's our name of our game. So the other piece would be, I think you have more, and fortunately also we were not positioned downtown. I think a lot of these downtown heavy chains are based a lot of in-town locations. That could be a struggle as well because people, in Florida, we're seeing a lot of folks moving here from other areas. And so you wonder about that. So my take, I think that the delivery piece of Uber Eats will drift off a little bit because it is the equivalent of opening room service, ordering room service. We raise, and most chains have raised their prices on the delivery 20 to 25% to offset that 25% fee that Uber Eats and DoorDash charge. So it's a much more expensive proposition. I think that people want to get back out. We have seen our sales jump since March, where the vaccine started kicking in. Our sales are up about 15%. So, and we are seeing more folks coming in store. We are heavier on dinner. Our dinner sales picked up because of more of the suburban locations. And we are seeing some of ours. We had 2 stores that were near Disney that crashed very heavily. Now they're having record sales now. And then several stores that were more of office district stores, they're coming back too. So I guess to answer your question, Tanya, I don't really know exactly. I sense that the delivery's here to stay as far as Uber Eats of the world. I think it's not, and we'll see if it continues to grow, but I personally think it'll probably ease off a little bit, but it's going to stay there. I think that the catering piece will be a trickier deal. I think big catering like weddings and things like that, that'll go, obviously those are going to crank up. But as far as in office, the lunch for 30, those kind of things, that probably will drop off slightly. We'll see. So that is one of the tricky parts. And then, we've gone real heavy on to-go packaging now, and we're transitioning our stores to plates and forks and knives. And now we have franchisees. Well, I don't want to go back to forks and knives in the store because disposable plates are easier to work with. So there's a lot of little sidebar deals going on as well, where right now getting packaging is difficult and staffing is difficult. So we have all these different curveballs coming at us. So I think long term, I think that we saw a lot of big restaurant chains with the big sit down go out, and so it does appear to be less seats out there right now. I don't know who's going to step into those positions where some of the buffet chains and things like that closed. In our area, there's 2 closed TGI Fridays. Those big box restaurants, I think that's a tough space, and I think you have to be unique and different to really differentiate from all the Ruby Tuesdays and Applebee's and Chili's of the world. In our niche, there are a lot of folks coming in as well, and I think that our takeout component will still be very heavy. Hopefully, we'll pick up back on the catering piece. I guess that's our big curveball. Is we pick up the catering now, and most of our franchisees are thinking that once school starts back up, kids are back in the schools, all the faculty. My store that I own, we have 44. I'm the franchisor. I own the one by University of South Florida campus. That store is still down 50%.
Yeah.
The kids aren't in school. Faculty's not there. Administrative now, they're starting to kind of trickle back in. We're hoping that late August that store kind of picks back up again as well.
Well, and Nick, it's interesting because I still have a pulse. Like I have a few different businesses that I dabble in, right? And one of my businesses, because I also, after I left Beef O Brady's, I went into the hotel industry. Right. And so now I have a personal business in which I assist people that are helping to book conferences. Okay. Right. And what I am seeing in the conference world, and it just so happens that a lot of my clients tend to be associations that work with higher education. So I think that it's really interesting to see how everything is intertwined a little bit, right? And so kind of what you were talking about, I think with higher education, what we're seeing there is that there's so much talk with what's going to happen with college tuition. What does that mean for their organizations and for their travel and even for students, right? You got to look at where all of this income comes in. So that's definitely affecting the decisions that are being made with budgets that are being given, as well as kids going back to school, safety. I mean, you've seen the PR nightmare last year of some of the campuses that opened too early and they had huge outbreaks. I'll be honest, we started this series saying it was post-pandemic, and here we are almost at the end of the series, and I'm like, we're not post yet. It feels like we're back in it, right?
It really does.
So you've got that component, right? And then what you're talking about, the conference and catering, I think for groups, what I think that businesses are dying. People are so fatigued. They're so tired, right? But that doesn't mean that they're willing to take the leap, or that businesses are willing to take that leap or take that risk to make them come back into work, or to make them go to that meeting or conference, right? Mm-hmm. So you got the public perception, and then you got the reality perception of what businesses, I think, are seeing. The other thing that I think that you touched on as well is the, we're in an employee shortage, and something that doesn't cost any money is to allow people to work remote. I'm seeing more and more, and it's a huge value add, right?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's next to impossible in the restaurant industry. Like you got to have people in there. And so I honestly think that what I'm hearing around from, some of the partners that I've worked with and some of my clients as well is ghost kitchens is something that seems to just keep coming up and talking about this idea of having a ghost kitchen to cater a variety of different menus and kind of huddle all of your resources together and then have a delivery. So obviously technology is going to be prime. But I also look at companies like where you are that are located in warmer destinations. I think for the most part, and I saw with Topgolf, even in the middle of the pandemic, people were still going to Topgolf because they felt safe because it was an outdoor venue.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that needs to be explored. I mean, Topgolf has outdoor venues located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they still operate year round, right? So it is possible to have that type of concept. Now, granted, there's money that's involved and all of that, but I think that I agree with you that some of the trends that we have seen as far as, I don't think takeout is going anywhere. I do think catering will come back. And quite honestly, if I had to put my spin on it, I think that restaurants will come back before hotels will. I think that it will be more localized meetings that will be, instead of having these huge regional.
Right.
Yeah. So if I had to put my guess on it, that's what I would guess on. But, again, I don't have my little black book. Marie has it. So
that's right.
Right. Well,
Right.
And, I would, it's very interesting about the catering because I think there's an opportunity for restaurants, going back to what you just said, Tanya, about the fact that I don't know that hotels will come back right away, but I do think people are very interested in gathering with their coworkers, gathering with other people, having those opportunities to network. And so I think there's an opportunity for restaurants to sort of use that. People are looking for spaces where they can have those sort of private conferences that are not huge. And restaurants, if they're willing to give up their space for a fee and also cater those events, I think you'll see a lot of that happening. Where people are going to be really more open to, let me get into a smaller space that's not as expensive as a hotel, and the food quality is better because it's an actual restaurant.
Right.
Where we can have meetings and gatherings. So, I think that'll be really interesting. And the other is that for remote workers, I'm seeing a big trend of people saying, let's have lunch together, and they send out gift cards to employees, or they send out for specific restaurants so that everyone's eating this sort of at the same place.
Oh, wow. That's pretty wild. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I think there's an opportunity there for restaurants, especially to sort of offer that, let's cater your lunch at your home.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? I had a coaching company once that they did a fireside chat in the middle of COVID, and they literally sent everyone Uber gift cards and told them to order their food from wherever they wanted for the fireside chat so that they could have dinner together. Right. So I've seen that. Yep. The other thing I think, two things before we get into the employee shortage, because we know we have to get there before we close this. But I don't know. Have you all seen the movie The Founder? It's about McDonald's and how it was inspired. I found myself watching that from the world that we live in right now, COVID, right? And it was showing how the first McDonald's was people would walk up and they'd order their food, and all of these families would go outside and they would sit at picnic tables and they would all just be sitting. I found myself longing for that, right? Like I was like, oh my God. Like I think for the most part, people are longing to sit down and share a meal with their friends, with their family. So I don't think that that's ever going to go away. The question is, can restaurants survive until we get some kind of normalcy? And I think that's where the innovation comes in. Right. And so that's kind of something that when we go into this employee shortage, something that I'm seeing is, I think that the solution doesn't lie. Right now, we tend to be in, it's either we've never done it, right? So, or we've always done it. but there's a huge gap in the middle of what have we not done that maybe we could do, right? And I feel like, or what maybe was done before that maybe we could consider and put a spin on it, like something like that, prime example of making it more in tune to today. When I talk to a lot of people, I mean, I coach a lot of people as far that are trying to be entrepreneurs. I also work with companies that are trying to get their business going. What I see is that I don't think the solution lies in all or nothing. I think a lot of people don't necessarily want 100% remote because they've been lonely. They want hybrid. They want an opportunity of, let me work from home. And then if I want to go to an office, or maybe we go to an office so many times to reconnect, let's do that. Or maybe we go to a restaurant and have an all-day meeting, whatever that looks like. And so that's the gap that I think that those solutions could be presented to people but I think too many people are living in that place of we've either never done it or we've always done it. And I don't think enough people live in the middle where what could this look like? And so the employee shortage, that's something that obviously we've got to get into because we're seeing it everywhere. A lot of people, which Marie and I, we've spoke at nausea lengths about this, but I would love to hear, a lot of people think that this is just going to poof magically go away once the stimulus is lifted. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, anecdotally, we hear that from the franchisees that clearly there's a certain segment of the population that is, hey, if I can sit at home and make $600 a week, and even if you pay me $700 a week, I'd rather sit at home. That's kind of out there. The other part we just don't know is how many people got out of the industry and just will not come back. And that's going to be a tricky part. So it's been a struggle. We have a franchisee who's like, I can't do this thing. He goes, I'm going to throw in the towel because we said, we'll start closing Sundays. And down here in Tampa, we've seen Starbucks out of coffee, Chick-fil-A closing early. It's crazy. I mean, we told our folks, scale back your hours, trim back the menu if you have to, scale things back. And I hope, that it'll ease up as, people kind of get back into more of a normal deal. But, our industry it's always been tight out there. And certainly even before the pandemic, it was a tight labor market. But this was kind of really because sales picked up so quickly and we had issues on supply chain, it really kind of hit hard. So it's a tricky one. I think that, in Florida, our minimum wage is going up to $15 an hour. So we've already kind of been ahead of the curve on paying people more money. At some point, when everybody's paying everybody, when you go to Dunkin' Donuts has signs out here by the beach, $15 an hour. It's gonna be tough. I guess the one thing we've seen is Marie, that we're raising prices. Everybody's raising 5 or 10% on prices, which is kind of in some ways sad because you're making more money, but if everything's more expensive around you, then it's really kind of a wash. So that'll be a tricky piece. One thing I do want to ask you all is, we saw, and this nobody's really mentioned, but we saw anecdotally people were, oh, gee, I'm in a pandemic, I'm gonna start cooking at home. Do you feel that piece is going to stay in place where people are more inclined to cook at home, or do you feel that now the pandemic's over, they're going back out again?
I think it's going to stay. I know Tanya's shaking her head.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing,
Well, it is, and I think for some people they've discovered a love of cooking, and other people have discovered a hate of cooking. So, there's that mixed bag. But I do think that. I'll speak for myself. Before the pandemic, I cooked at home and during I did, but I loved going to restaurants to try new things, and then try to recreate it at home. Like I'm that type of cook where I like going out to eat. And there's sometimes I'm like, I don't want to cook. Like I don't want to be the one that has to cook. So I want to go out and have a nice meal of something that I'm not going to cook at home and I don't even want to attempt. Right. But I do think that people are still going to cook at home, but I think it's going to be a different sort of thing. I think they're going to go out for an experience.
Right.
And so I think restaurants have to not just provide food, whether you're, fast dining or, fine dining, whatever level of dining you are. I think you have to provide some experience that makes someone go, I want to go and have this event.
So yes and no. But again, keep in mind, when I first moved to Louisiana, I will never forget my 3-year-old son in the back of my car, and he wanted to go to McDonald's. And I mean, I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this fight. I'm like, baby, I'm sorry, McDonald's is closed. And my son looks at me, Burger King? I was like, oh my God, I am not winning Mother of the Year anytime soon, right? So then, needless to say, though, I started CrossFitting. I got into a healthier lifestyle. I cook and prep for the week. But one thing I will tell you, even working remote, because just because you're working remote doesn't mean that you have time to make these elaborate meals all week. And I'm a single mom, right? And so when I look at it, one niche that I have not seen anywhere in the market, and I think could boom big time, is healthy family meals delivered to families. Already prepared that you just have to warm up. You can see, I can pay for paleo meals to get delivered to my house, and I have done that because during the week, I get so tired of what I'm limited to cook that is healthy, right? And so, but I'm again not winning any Mother of the Year. I'll order paleo for me and warm up chicken nuggets for myself.
Yeah, from McDonald's.
It's the reality. If not, then there's always a Burger King. But I mean, that's the reality of my world. And so, but I do also agree with Marie that I think that there's this line of people are still, even though we're working from home, doesn't mean that we're just sitting at home eating bonbons and we're living back in the 50s where life was much slower. We are still living in a world of technology that requires us to be on 24/7, right? We still have our phones right by our side. We still have to answer emails. We still have to answer texts. We still have to, be on social media, all that good stuff. I don't see the stress of the day-to-day going away, whether we're in an office or whether we're not. And so I do think that there is an opportunity there, and especially for a company like yours who, I mean, let's face it, Greek food is much more healthy than McDonald's, right?
And delicious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I do think that there's an opportunity that could be tapped in there that no one's touching on. That, hey, feed your family and feel good about it and go to sleep at night feeling good. Right. Mm-hmm. But then I also think, like Marie said, because of the fatigue, people are wanting experiences. But again, I think that those experiences, like I said, I see Topgolf and I watch, and even now I keep a pulse on what they're doing, and their sales are still great. I mean, granted, depending on where they are, they have to work around whatever, recommendations from the government or from, the state is inclined, but they still are able to operate because they are partially outdoors. Yeah. So I think that we have passed the day where anyone, because the other thing is that men and women both have to work, right? Because the cost of living has not gone down, even though wages haven't really caught up with that. And so I don't think that, we already saw that this pandemic affected women greatly. And I think that what we are seeing now is we're going into a workforce that cannot survive if women don't come back into the workforce, right? I mean, we need women in the workforce. And so because of that, we have to be realistic to what are the problems that women are facing. And we already know childcare is one of those big issues, right? So you can't tell me that if they are persuaded to go back to work, that they're still going to want to cook, even if they're remote. They're just not.
No.
That's my opinion.
Do you see all the plexiglass coming down? I guess with COVID coming back, but the flu season is coming up. You all feel that that's going to be part of our life from now on, that you go to a full service restaurant and there's plexiglass dividers? You do, Marie? Yep.
I do. It's really funny because at one point I thought, no, we can't live with plexiglass, but I think we've gotten accustomed to it. Yep. And it's the same with, think about it. We take off our shoes at the airport, and let's be honest, we don't need to. We really don't. But we do it now out of habit, unless you've got TSA pre-check. But then you can do it.
For a little upcharge, we'll take down the plexiglass.
Right. Exactly. So I think that's where we're sort of headed, is that I think we've realized that the last flu season was one of our best flu seasons.
Yeah. Ironically,
right? Yeah. Hardly anyone had the flu because we had masks, and so I don't think masks are going to go away. So ladies and gentlemen, coordinate your outfits. I don't think plexiglass is going to go away. But I do think that people are really starting to try to think, how do I have an experience that doesn't feel like it's stifling at a restaurant? Yep. They do want to be able to talk to the waiter or waitress and feel like they're connecting with another human being, when they're ordering. And they want to feel that like it doesn't feel like I'm in some sort of like,
Bubble,
1984 novel
of
dystopia. So it's an interesting thing. And the other thing that I think about this is that, when you talk about outdoors, I'm outside of Chicago. So, it's cold. Let's just be honest. But even though I still want to sit outside in the middle of winter, and which is insanity. I know for those of you in Florida that are watching this and you're going, are you nuts? Yes, we are. We live in the middle of cold. But that being said, we want to have that experience. And I think how we do that is going to be really interesting. Like, how do restaurants figure out how to accommodate crazy people who want to be outside in rain and sleet and snow, and not necessarily inside, because they're not ready to go inside yet.
Yeah. One thing we have found, a couple of sidebars. One issue we've run into, plexiglass with the hoods, we can't hear customers. Because you have the plexiglass blocking and they're trying to give you an order and you're trying to stoop down like, what do you say? And then the other thing we've seen.
Mask too.
Exactly, master. We've seen, I think restaurants are getting smaller because the amount of takeout and delivery dining has increased. So there's not as much demand for in-store. And then people want drive-thrus now. So everybody's kind of pushing towards the drive-thru. So it'll be interesting to see real estate-wise how that changes the industry as well as folks. And I don't know if you all try, but we were ordering fine dining restaurants to go, which they weren't really set up for that, and that's kind of been an interesting. Our food is not nearly as good to go in 20 minutes later than when you go a restaurant fresh off the oven. So
Well, see, and I kind of disagree. I think plexiglass will go away. I don't think masks will. But I also think, and I don't know if you all have heard this, but and Marie, with you living in Chicago, maybe you have. But I literally was this many years old when I just learned this fun fact, was that, the radiators, the big chunky heaters. So those I learned were created during the Spanish flu. And the point of those were created, they were so hot and put out so much energy so that people would be forced to open their windows so that it would help air quality so they wouldn't get sick.
Interesting.
I just learned that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That's where I think that restaurants, to get rid of the plexiglass, it's air quality. We know that. Mm-hmm. We know if you have more flow. So that doesn't mean you have to be all outside. That means maybe you have to have windows that are opened, and maybe you have heaters, space heaters, whatever, conserving energy. So I think, again, there's solutions in that gap that will make people feel safer. Some might just be PR, but some are real. Like, I'll be honest, I worked out the entire pandemic, but I work out in a CrossFit gym, which is an old warehouse that a garage door opens. And so we didn't have anyone get sick ever, even in the middle of the pandemic, with slinging weights, with sweating side by side. And I know that they've proven that air quality makes all of the difference in the world. So I think that the key to getting rid of the plexiglass is air quality. I do think drive-thrus are something that will be big. And then I also think that delivery of, why you think about Amazon. Amazon has warehouses everywhere and they have delivery drivers everywhere. Especially that's kind of what I see with ghost kitchens happening happening, and they're being meals prepared, and you got Amazon people, whatever, somewhat similar, driving and delivering it everywhere to cater to people. Yeah. So I think we're going to see a lot of innovation coming out. It's unfortunate, I think, that too many of even some of the bigger concepts that I would have expected more from, they just are sitting waiting to see what's going to happen. And I'm like, why are we not being proactive? I don't understand.
Yeah, you have to create the innovation. I mean, at the end of the day, I think is really what it comes down to. And those who survive.
It's hard. You get this tunnel vision. Your restaurants are set up a certain way, and that's where you have to kind of throw, to your point, there's these kind of situations where things change, and I think everybody's got to rethink their model and see. But the hard thing is, what is the future going to hold? And that's what's always gets a little tricky, because you can pivot, and maybe that's not where it's going to go. But the ghost kitchens are interesting for me because I've seen a few tested where they're just, the volume's not there to make it worthwhile to staff up. I think having an existing restaurant and throwing in a complimentary menu that you can execute, you have to get the branding out there. But I think that'll work. We'll see how the Reef Kitchens and all those folks, the ones who are doing pure ghost kitchens, because as you know, both of you, staffing the kitchen is the hardest part of the business.
Yeah.
And trying to find a great kitchen crew that shows up, and then all of a sudden are they having to execute 10 different menus? And so it'll be interesting how those folks work those situations out.
So interesting enough, I'm working with a client who has developed a technology that literally will allow entrepreneurs who cook their own tech, that people can order that and they can prepare it out of a ghost kitchen. So again, a new way to think about it. Cooks that are $10.99, who thought about it, right? But those little things, and that's where I think that and again, I know we only know what we know. And I know the other thing, Marie and I were talking about this before you jumped on, Nick. It's really hard to make these kinds of decisions out of fear. And when you've got franchisees that have put their life into this restaurant and they're watching sales go down, they're trying to hang on, and then also they're also tied to what they're allowed to do based on franchise requirements. Because let's face it, that's reality too. I get where it can stifle the innovation. With that being said, how open are you all? Do you all have a forum that you listen to your franchisees with ideas and stuffs and ways to navigate?
Yep. Well, it's kind of funny, and both of you from the franchising world, the franchisees they have their own big gig, and like even at McDonald's, as you know, all those great items, the Egg McMuffin and the fish sandwich were all created by franchisees. So we kind of look to them to come up. But our group has not really been that aggressive because right now they're pretty busy. Our sales are up. So normally franchisees get real creative when they see an opportunity or a gap. And as far as I know, we do talk to them all the time because we're pretty small. And so we get out there. We do have our annual meeting. This year we had to do, unfortunately, virtual annual meeting, our big retreat. So we've not really seen any real push from ours. One of our issues is our menu is so big. We already have like 14 different proteins: salmon, steak, gyro, chicken, falafel. And so our menu is pretty complex. Everybody's made from scratch. So I don't think they have a lot of bandwidth to pick up, although I would love to try to maybe test out a ghost kitchen concept. I know Jeff from Wow Bao, he's been doing a lot of that up there as well. And we are talking to some of the Reef Kitchen, the ghost kitchen folks as well to see where that goes. So it's a tricky thing. Yeah, again, we're out there always trying to, like you said, people don't like change. We have pasticcio, moussaka. These are two Greek kind of like lasagna dishes that only 1% of sales. I'm saying drop them. Oh, my customers love those items. I go, come on. It's not, they only sell a couple of weeks.
All three of them.
Right. So that's all.
Do not diss the moussaka. It's good.
That's right. It's a great dish, but it's not real healthy. But it's very complex. You got to make a bechamel, and so that's kind of sometimes where we're trying to like trim them down. Like we do. We actually do a cut. We're cutting a lamb, which is a tough piece of meat to trim down. And we're saying, well, maybe we already have the gyro, which has some lamb, and maybe get rid of that. But no, our customers love lamb skewer, so it's a challenge. So I think, unfortunately, we're not being really super proactive on that front.
Well, now I'm hungry.
Yeah, there you go. We have one in Schaumburg.
Do you really? Okay. Well, then now I know where I'm going this week. Now I'm hungry. Like I'm just hungry now.
Yeah. Well, we do a lot of gyros, and they come out of Kronos, Grease's Delight, which is up in Chicago. So that's where our stuff comes from too. Yeah. So it's a challenging time. I mean, it is.
You need a food truck.
Yeah, I want to see Marie's black book though. She has all the future predicted in there, and that's where I want to go. I think we'll be able to get you and I, Tanya, we can make a lot of money if we find all the information in there. So
I'm on it, and I will totally let you in.
Okay,
there's a food truck in your future. I'm just saying that.
That's right. That's right.
Well, all right, guys. So we only have a few more minutes. I know we could talk forever, but Nick, any parting thoughts, any kind of words of wisdom or encouragement or anything you want to give for some of those franchisees or small business owners out there that are drowning and really scared right now?
Yeah, well, I think you all are doing the right thing. It's so important to get out of your box, and open up. And I I learned from these type of situations, and so really, get out, learn, listen what's going on, listen to the podcast, and kind of get the best, because that's where I go to for my industry friends. And that's what I miss partly is not being able to go to the conferences where you get to bump into you guys and stuff like that. And the Technomic folks are out there shaking and baking, but those will be coming back. But that'd be my advice. It's sometimes what you said, Tanya, when it's tough, that sometimes there's opportunities. I remember my brother once said that there's the Chinese letter for danger is also opportunity, that sometimes you can kind of use these opportunities to grow, and you got to kind of get out of your box and try to test things that maybe where you don't bet the ranch, but give it a little try and see. Maybe we do I kind of put together a small ghost kitchen burger chicken concept thing. Maybe we just give it a shot, see how it goes. You always learn some stuff, and some things maybe work, some don't. So I think my advice would be use these times to kind of like you said earlier, run a great business. That's to kind of get you in the door. And then at this point, always be open to trying and testing, because, we want to look a year, 5, 10 years ahead, and you don't want to be sitting in the wrong spot where everybody has drive-throughs and you're in line position. So that's kind of, it's one of the things I talked about where even with Beef O Brady is one of my mistakes. When you do business, you can't look just what the site looks like now. You got to look 10 years from now. We did a site in Florida, Valrico. There's an empty lot in front of it. There's a grocery store anchor center. We're on the corner and there's empty space. Well, then all of a sudden Steak and Shake goes there and blocks our view. So as you do your business, try to think 5 or 10 years out and be prepared and save cash. It's always never have too much cash in the bank when times get rough. So that's the other thing.
Absolutely.
Good advice.
All right. Well, Nick, thank you so much. We really
nice to meet you. Good to see you guys again, and take care. We wish you all the very best.
Absolutely. Well, Maria and I, we're going to jump on to a different one for our post thoughts, but thank you, Nick. And,
make sure you got to get Marie's name on it too. That's you got to get
of
Marie's
course.
name on
I know, right?
No.
Here we go.
Oh, look what you
Yes. Marie, are you related to Joe from Technomic?
No.
No, there's Joe. There's one of the guys at Technomic has the same last name, which is great.
Oh, it's Polish, so it is the Smith of the world. Is the running joke. Like you can't,
You guys take care. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Nick. Bye.
Right.